Hello, beautiful Cancerian moon children clan. I am so happy to be sitting and working with you today. Uh, my boyfriend, I asked him right before I started this what I should say to you all because he's one of you. And he said, get outside and go for a walk. That was his insight for me to help me tap into your energy. But no, seriously, this is a really interesting month for you all. And I know we're going through some really interesting energetic waves, and as sensitive people, I hope you all are finding ways to ride through feeling the rest of that energy and integrate it and feel loved and safe and held in whatever way you need at this time. But this month is really cool in so many ways, and the big thing going on here with you all is that this north node of the moon, the nodes of destiny of the moon, right? They transit through a sign for about 18 months, and the north node has been with you for a year and a half. It's moving this month. So the north node is moving into Gemini on May 5th. And you know, the north node in your sign is a really beautiful time. Often a lot of things will get amplified. A lot of big destiny moments will kind of pull you forward in life and change the location of your world and what that is. A lot of really beautiful things can come in at that time, but also it can be a time where you also feel like you are in that spotlight and you're having to learn really quickly. And there can be a little pressure that you almost feel with the north node in your sign. So as it moves out of your sign, one thing that I think will be beautiful for you the first couple of weeks of this month is to just check in with yourself. What has happened over the last 18 months? Especially because Saturn has also been in your opposing sign of Capricorn in relationships and in the way you relate. You know, there's been some pressures going on with the Cancer-Capricorn dynamic and the axis, and this is a great time to just check in. Notice where you've grown. Notice where you've healed. Give yourself credit for everything that's happened. Kind of write it out, I would even recommend. You know, have fun bullet pointing how far you've come, because this is a really big shift energetically. The North Node's now going to be in your 12th house, along with Venus, who's going to be doing her retrograde in Gemini in your 12th house. These are really spiritual energies. And what I will say about this is I kind of love this for Cancerians because it's watery wisdom. It's that intuitive wisdom that comes from having energy behind the scenes, giving you your blessings. So this is a beautiful month to get a little deeper with creating those spaces where you can to listen into whatever messages want to come in, whether you do breath work or yoga, or you just like to go for long walks or just sit quietly. However you like to listen in, tune in, this energy right now is going to be extremely talkative for you. And we're going to do a deep dive for Venus retrograde over on my Patreon. I'm really excited. I'm starting to prepare and research for that. We're going to be doing a weekly check-in for every single week of Venus retrograde over there. I'm going to be sharing some love stories from my past. We're going to get into this because Venus in Gemini, and then add on her symbolic retrograde, is going to be all about how we cast spells with our words and our thoughts and with our immediate planning. So this is a really powerful one. Like I said, happening in your neighboring sign in a really mystical area of your life. So those are the big things. Other things that are happening this month. We have outer planets going retrograde. Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto are all also going retrograde, and they will be retrograde until late September, early October. So we're getting into retrograde season where our magic comes from the inside out, where we tap into our greater power. A lot of times I notice, you know, people think of retrogrades as time where less things happen and it's harder to make things happen. But the way that I've noticed things coming in during a whole bunch of planet retrograde, especially outer planets, this is a time where things actually work very well, but we have to be a little bit more surrendered to our divine nature rather than our controlling side. And that means that the way blessings come in is always very different than we expect. King of Cups, loving that. Okay, let's get into it here, huh? Yeah, so this is a really powerful spiritual time coming up, very potent. I really like Taurus season, and the sun moving through Taurus, so beautiful, so potent, so powerful, right? So healing. Six of Swords. This is such a beautiful time for that. We have a couple other placements that I think will be really nice for you. We have full moon in Scorpio on May 7th. So highlighting that fifth house creative chakra. Lovers. Ooh, I'm loving this. Loving this. Venus starts her retrograde on May 13th. And Mars moves into Pisces on May 13th as well. So Mars in your life philosophy house, how you view your world, is getting a shift. Ooh, Wheel of Fortune. Big upgrades going on here. Big upgrades going on here. As this intensive pressure with the North Node in your sign starts to flow away, and as Saturn stops opposing you this month, the pressure recedes. And what that does is it creates space for reconnection to who you want to be next, and for a really dreamy source of information coming through. I mean, we're also going to start having the sun moving into Gemini, a new moon in Gemini, energy starting to flow into the sign right before you, which we're getting ready for Cancer season. And this year, you guys, we're going to have the final Cancer eclipse on the solstice, on the beginning of Cancer season. This is like the closeout of all those eclipses. So I'm really excited for Cancer season this year, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here. It is May. We are going to, but as that energy starts moving into Gemini, we get more and more spiritual. We get more and more tapped into that deeper part of ourselves. So this is just a really magical time, Page of Pentacles, to tap into those messages, into that wisdom as this month progresses. And Two of Swords. All right. Yeah. I hear that. I think a lot of us are in Two of Swords mode right now, unable to move. So we're needing to lean into more of that intuitive trust and not get too in our heads, right? Three of Swords. All right. All right. And let's see what we have going on here. Now we'll talk about that 2 and 3 of Swords, because that is very mental energy. And like I said, Venus retrograde in Gemini is really interesting because it has us tapping into how we cast spells, right? With words, with vibration, with thought. And that means that, everybody's going to experience Venus retrograde differently, but it does tend to help us heal where we self-sabotage when it comes to self-love, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to what we love and value, when it comes to our resources. If cards are flying here, and 6 of Wands. Okay, see, you come out of the storm just fine, my friends. You come out better than fine, in fact. Because she's the planet of truth, love, and beauty. When she's retrograde, she's going to be looking at do we hold those values for ourselves within ourselves? And if we don't, it will, relationships come in to reflect that and help us sort it out. It also just helps us sit with any of those pain points, those shadow points that are uncomfortable. For you, this comes in the spiritual element. So this is how you're connecting to Source, how you're letting yourself connect to Source, how you are allowing yourself to be fully who you are and not to judge it. So we're going to get into those Swords cards at the top. Don't let those discourage you, because the rest of these cards are just so powerful and beautiful. And there's a lot of destiny activation going on here and a lot of big, bold moves coming into play at this time. So let's go through this. We start with King of Cups. All right, here we go. King of Cups energy. Maybe you have water energy around you. Maybe you're activating this inside of yourself. But King of Cups is powerful because this is the ability to navigate deep emotive waters with confidence, with clarity, with understanding, right? This is that emotional intelligence level that I think we're all aspiring to. And this being a point of power rather than disempowerment, right? So letting yourself feel everything, witnessing it, knowing and trusting yourself enough to know that you can witness it and it doesn't detract from your path moving forward, that in fact it gives you great information. Now, there are some shifts going on. Let's talk about these next three cards together, because we need that King of Cups energy in order to navigate all this other powerful stuff going on. Now, I love this. I love this because what's interesting for me is that in this reading, the Six of Swords, the guy is leaving, you know, this whole boat is leaving one shore, right? But they're going towards the Lovers and the Wheel of Fortune, right? They're going towards this adventure. And maybe you're leaving behind an identity or a way you thought that was going to play out. Maybe you're leaving behind a set of values, a set of thoughts, though in this picture they're taking those thoughts with them. But, you know, maybe you're leaving behind a definition of yourself, a viewpoint of yourself that's no longer serving, but you're going towards something. And I think one thing that I've been picking up a lot this year is that we always think about loss and stuff as like this when bad things happen in life, right? Like we lose somebody or we have to make a change and so something bad's happening. But, you know, our shifting also happens when really beautiful things are happening. And when the more we're activating who we're becoming next and the more we're letting ourselves change shape, the more we are very quickly leaving behind familiar thought patterns, familiar routines, sometimes familiar relationships, familiar landscapes, physical spaces. And yeah, so like the more we're letting ourselves follow our true nature, the more we are likely to have bigger shifts in life. And that means we have to integrate whatever we're leaving behind, right? And so I think it's always important to acknowledge that it's a both and situation. I am both feeling really excited and open and thrilled for this adventure. And I'm feeling some fatigue and some overwhelm and some discouragement even sometimes about having to learn a new curve and having to be a beginner again, right? And so there's a depth going on here with this. Now, the Lovers and the Wheel of Fortune, right? This is some big destiny, fate, activation stuff going on. Actually, the Lovers is such a perfect representation of Venus and Gemini, and then Venus and Gemini going retrograde, because the Lovers is associated with Gemini, and of course Venus is the planet of love. There's this communicative energy going on here. Big conversations happening in May that illuminate some big shifts in life. So for each of you, obviously, that's going to be really different. That could be in partnerships. That can also be in any close relationships you're having, either with yourself or with your family or with your life. You know, any deep conversations, these kinds of conversations, these kinds of connections, these kinds of face-to-face moments of clarity help shift that wheel. There's a change of season. Now, I kind of love that the Wheel of Fortune is here too, because I think about the nodes of the moon shifting. And for me, that shift, where we're putting our emphasis, where the collective energy is being focused, it's kind of like its own season, right? And there is a lot of shift. We're also getting used to Saturn and Aquarius, very different feeling. We're also getting used to Uranus and Taurus, very different feeling than other years. Now the North Node in Gemini. These energies are very different, and there is a change of scenery here. Now, what I love about this energy here, this is like recalibrating your scales. It's like beginning a new energetic cycle. It's like initiating a new adventure. Now, it's big, right? This is big energy. This is not small fry, big adventure. This is big, big adventure, right? And it's inviting you in to some pretty bold new steps in life and really owning them. And I think that's where that self-trust that I was talking about is so important here. Trust yourselves, guys. You know how to take care of yourselves. You know how to show up for yourselves. You're never not going to do that. I've been reading Being in Nothingness by Jean-Paul Sartre, and one of the things he says about our anguish in life is when we're always thinking about the future, we're always making appointments with our future selves that we've concocted in our minds, and we're afraid that we're not going to meet ourselves at the rendezvous point, that we're not going to be there for the meeting, because we don't trust ourselves, and we torture ourselves with that, right? So as soon as we just decide, I'm going to trust that I'm going to be there for myself, no matter what, even if that point doesn't exist, I'm still going to be here, right? So Page of Pentacles, final initiation energy here, right? Between Lovers, Wheel of Fortune, Page of Pentacles. These are all so beautiful. Wheel of Fortune is telling me, Page of Pentacles, new doors opening, new plans being able to be made, new investments being able to be made. Now, pages always bring in kind of a beginner energy, right? It's not about something that you already know how to do or something that you've already predicted was going to happen. This is the kind of stuff where it's like new skill sets, new ways of seeing, right? It's not about status quo. Once again, energy right now in general in May is really not about status quo. It's not about things getting worse necessarily, but it is about being able to tune into the fact that where life takes you next isn't going to be something that feels familiar necessarily. And that's where these swords come in. I always like to contextualize anything like these cards when you look at where they are. What are they between? They're between two cards of huge growth. Page of Pentacles and Six of Wands. That tells me something. That tells me a lot of something, actually. It tells me that these energies come up when we are changing shape. And when we are unfamiliar with that shape and we are second guessing. And these energies come up for the familiar thought patterns that we learned when we were young to protect ourselves. Or even maybe not to protect ourselves, we just purely learned them because they were our parents' protection mechanism, or they were our guardians' protection mechanisms, or they were in the media as protection mechanisms, right? Those mechanisms often sound like, nothing's ever going to be okay. This is going to be really bad. I've got to watch my back. I'm going to be hurt, right? It's those kind of things that we think we say them preemptively, somehow we're protecting ourselves, right? And it's also comes up when maybe we feel like we need to be doing something differently or in the way that's expected of us. And if we can't do it in those ways, then maybe we aren't worthy and maybe we aren't lovable and maybe we won't ever make it, right? These kinds of thoughts. Swords suit is all about how we think, all about how we use our thoughts to torture ourselves or love ourselves, period. And so when we grow and when we change, those little voices that normally want to keep us safe like to come up. They like to come up. They want to have a say at the table. They want to tell us why we're going to be okay or we're not going to be okay. But here's the thing. It's moving forward time, right? This is a card of triumph. This is a card of clarity. This is a card of no matter what little self-protection voices maybe want to come in and get involved, they can't stop you. They can't stop you. And, I know many of you are probably thinking, well, there's a Venus retrograde. You got that Three of Swords. That's a recipe for disaster, right? And I will acknowledge this. I will acknowledge this about Venus retrograde once again. We're going to get a lot deeper on this on Patreon, but Venus retrograde, I've had some experiences and I will be sharing those personal experiences of Venus retrograde with you during that journey because I've definitely experienced romantic love relationship wild things happening during Venus retrogrades. They tend, if you have that happening, they tend to be a reflection of something you want to clarify in your life. You want to get really clear on, whether that's self-value, whether that's independence, whether that's allowing vulnerability into your life. It can look like so many different things. Venus retrograde wants us to heal where we don't love ourselves. So that lesson can come in a million different packages. You can have a really stable partnership. And that's the other thing with Venus retrograde. If you have a stable, loving partnership, you're going to have deep conversations. You're going to have to, you're probably going to go to deeper places and come to clearer understanding of each other. But you could be learning that lesson via those deeper conversations. So there's a number of ways, but it helps us heal from past pain. And that's the main thing to keep focused on here. And you all have so much love and support here for moving forward in life and to waking up to some really beautiful new pathways. Now, I have keywords that I wrote up for May, things that came to mind when I thought about May energy, and I'm going to pull one word for you all to see what the overarching message wants to be. And we have choose. Choose. Ah, that's so good. That's so good. It's really interesting with this Two of Swords, right? Because the Two of Swords is often where we can't choose, or where we waffle, or where we feel disempowered to choose, or we feel disempowered by our thoughts or situations to make a choice. But the message that comes through for me there is choose yourself relentlessly. Choose to trust that you will show up for yourself over and over again. Choose to believe that you will always be taken care of and that you will always take care of yourself. Just choose it now. Don't bother torturing yourself over, I don't know, today maybe I can't choose myself. Maybe I'm not allowed. This is a time to choose. This is also, because we have, Two of Swords. Maybe you feel like you have a big commitment coming up, or you have a big new road opening up, and it's a little scary to step on it, right? Wheel of Fortune, Two of Swords, I think about how sometimes we have big things that shift in life, big yeses we need to commit to, right? And that part of ourselves that's a little nervous about that wants to hold us back and have us sit and weigh it out. That's fine to weigh it out, but you may have some big yes to contribute to your journey this month, and it will be a month of choosing that and choosing it unapologetically, unabashedly, right? And choose is such a powerful word. So much of the torture we put ourselves through in life has to do with feeling like we can't choose and we don't know how to choose, and maybe we shouldn't choose, and maybe we should just sit here and you guys are cardinal water. You are so empowered to choose. So that's just a reminder of that. You're allowed to choose and say yes and go and do what feels right and make that shift. You totally are. Okay, so like I said, like I've mentioned a few times now, I am doing so much extra work on Patreon. It's a really great extra resource if you want the weekly check-in with energy week by week and what we're doing. It's a great way to get a sense of that. We're going to be doing the 6-week Venus retrograde over there. All sorts of great resources. I'm hopefully going to be putting up some worksheets for that as well. If you want to work one-on-one with me, I will be opening up June sessions soon. I'm so looking forward to doing those in Cancer season. Just need to get some logistics figured out. So if you're looking for a one-on-one reading, I will leave that below as well. Like I said, we'll be starting to have sessions in June and forward. You can find me on Instagram at Sarah Verba. And as always, I'm wearing PinkLune's gorgeous jewelry. She is amazing Taurus magic. So if you're looking for jewelry to tide you over and feel grounded, I will leave her link below as well. I'm sending you all so much love, and I will see you in June for all the excitement and for the moon magics in May as well. Talk to you soon, my loves.